For more than the past 35 years, the Commonwealth has accepted responsibility for funding critical infrastructure in remote communities through the Municipal and Essential Services program, known as MUNS. Now, the original purpose of this project was to supplement the efforts of the states, the territories and local government to deliver municipal service to Indigenous people, particularly in those remote communities where, quite simply, mainstream municipal services were not available. The federal government has now determined that it is simply going to walk away from this responsibility, hand a bucket of money of short-term funding to a number of the state governments and simply wash its hands of all responsibility. Well, Mr Deputy Speaker, there is grave disquiet throughout the Pilbara and the Kimberley in Western Australia and to a lesser extent in the Goldfields, because Western Australia is the community that is most affected by this decision. In Western Australia, we have around 204 permanent remote communities, remote Indigenous communities, with a population in those communities of over 12,000 people. And 164 of these communities rely on this MUNS funding in many instances to provide the basic services of power, water, rubbish disposal and sewerage. And there has been absolutely no consultation with the Aboriginal communities. The Aboriginal communities are deeply aggrieved by what has happened here, by firstly the federal government just simply walking away from their responsibility, and secondly by the approach that has been taken by the state government. The state government has taken the equivalent of 3 years' funding for this project, after which all funding will cease. The state government's approach has been very clear, that they expect that there will be communities, a significant number of communities that will close, and indeed up to 150 communities, it has been suggested, will close. Now, this has caused extreme angst throughout the Aboriginal community and within local government. And I want to just outline some of the concerns. After a lot of protests, when this announcement was made and the Premier indicated that up to 150 communities may well close, there was a lot of process. The local governments received an email on the 25th of November saying that the Department of Local Government would be advising that there would be a meeting of local government planning committees on the municipal service implementation. To date, and this is less than 5 months from D-Day, to date there has been no terms of reference developed, no committee has been called, no committee has met. So we have got 5 months in which we have, before D-Day occurs, before these contracts that currently have been issued by the Commonwealth cease to apply, and there has been nothing put in place. This is, of course, the Aboriginal communities are distraught. I met this morning with Michelle Nelson-Cox. She's the Aboriginal Health Council, chairs the Aboriginal Health Council of Western Australia. She, with many senior people, Indigenous and non-Indigenous across Western Australia, recently put a letter in the paper talking about how outrageous it was that there was a suggestion that these communities, many of these small communities, would be closed down. The recent debate about funding to local Aboriginal communities doesn't recognise their importance to Aboriginal people or the cultural asset they are both to the state and to the nation. The debate doesn't recognise the important role Aboriginal people play as custodians of the land and its conservation values. There are no doubt that improvements to services are needed in many communities, but given their importance to health, well-being and the continuing culture of Aboriginal people, government should invest in these communities rather than simply withdraw services. These concerns are absolutely echoed by local government. The Pilbara Regional Council on Friday, in a discussion with me, said local government has still not been advised of any formal process to manage the Commonwealth exit from MUNS and is completely in the dark regarding services to be transitioned, timeframes for transition, costs for both the transition into the future and community closures. Mixed messages are coming from the state government, and the federal government claim that it is no longer their problem. Mr Speaker, we see the state government is in chaos on this point.
The member's first time has expired.